You're listening to the Rite Retirement Show.
The 70% of people out there listening to the show today are going to need some level of care. It doesn't necessarily mean that 70% are going to end up in a nursing home, but 70% of people will need some assistance out there. The biggest fear is running out of money for the retiree, but what we see is not enough people spend enough of their money.
Cris prides himself in what matters to you. This is the Rite Retirement Show.
Hello there, I'm Louann Fulmar. Welcome to the Rite Retirement Show. Of course, joining me today, as usual, certified financial planner and financial advisor Cris Wallace, president of WG Financial Group. And then also with us from the firm is Graham Bauer, another certified financial planner, financial advisor, and enrolled agent. And they're both here to share some smart, practical, empowering advice to help you plan for and truly enjoy your retirement. If you have questions, they have answers. Call or text the word visit 256-937-2010, 256-937-2010. You can schedule your complimentary discovery session. Remember, you can find us on Facebook. Just look for WG Financial Group 256. And Cris will update that throughout the week from when we record in case anything happens regarding retirement news. Remember the motto, plan, retire, play. We'll be talking about that. And don't forget, you can listen to our show anywhere. Search for the Rite Retirement Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or online at wgfinancialgroup.com. And hello, Cris. How are you?
Hello, Louann. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back from Thanksgiving. Graham, I want to include you. Hello to you.
Yeah. Hey, Louann. How was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, just had a great time. Just a lot of relaxing and a lot of cooking on one day. But other than that, really, really fun.
Do you have to do most of the cooking, or are you at the point where you have daughters and daughter-in-laws that handle a lot of that?
We had a mini Thanksgiving on Wednesday, and that's the one where I did like the gravy and the dressing. But then my daughter's mother-in-law did the turkey, and then Haley did the mashed potatoes and the rolls. So it was kind of a joint effort.
Okay, that's great.
It was fun.
So this mini Thanksgiving, did you have like a baby turkey? Or
Well, I didn't even check how big it was. It was pretty dang big. It wasn't mini. It wasn't mini. But there were 9 of us. That's why I say that. Not very many of us. But the following day at my sister's in another town, oh my gosh, 30 plus people. Yeah.
A lot of people.
Wow.
And so you guys, I trust you guys had a great time.
We did. I was in Ohio for Thanksgiving, so that was a lot of fun. Spent time with my father-in-law. Great time up there, of course. Lots of people for Thanksgiving. They're Buckeye fans, so they were really happy to see what Ohio State did to Michigan.
Oh my, yes.
And we were watching that at my mother-in-law's son's house, and man, they really get into it. It was like I was really at the game. They were really loud, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to see Ohio State beat Michigan.
That was a late game, wasn't it, for you guys?
No, they started, I think it's noon. Eastern Standard. Yeah,
okay.
So it's
I'm
right
thinking
around
of a
noon.
different game. Okay.
I think you're thinking Alabama-Auburn, I think, was the night, which is probably what more of our listeners were watching at the time. Got the Iron Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you were an Alabama fan, that was a good day. If you're an Auburn fan, not so good day.
So good.
It hasn't been a good day to be an Auburn fan in a little while.
Somebody said that to me yesterday, actually, walking out of the office.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that we were talking about the NFL, and obviously I'm a Minnesota Viking fan. I'm embarrassed to say that this year. It's horrible. And the gentleman said, yeah, it's not been great in a number of years to be an Auburn fan either. So it's like, well, it doesn't help me out any. But so, yeah, they were probably watching that. You're right, Graham. Auburn and Alabama for sure.
Graham, did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was great. We had a little kind of joint thing with my family and Emma's family. So it was a whole lot of folks there. And I don't know if anybody listening is familiar with the game Bunko, but it's kind of a tradition to play Bunko every year. So I did not have the luck on my side of the dice. I will not be going to Vegas anytime soon.
Oh, Graham.
But it is always fun. It's just a fun game. There's really no skill involved. You just roll a bunch of dice, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't.
That's a fun tradition. I like that idea.
Yeah, they get super into it. So it makes it more fun when everyone's, really into it.
Right. And so now here we are in the beginning of Christmas season. Hard to believe we're coming up on the end of the year. Cannot believe that. We're going to get into end of year tax planning here and a checklist for you. But first, let's talk about our real talk. What do you have for us today?
Well, we're real sorry that we didn't communicate to you pre-show that we're actually not going to have one this week.
Oh, I missed that. Okay,
well,
sorry.
we didn't talk about it. It was in the notes, and then Graham and I were really unable to find one. I think, to be honest with you, again, I'm a Vikings fan, and my social media feed right now is just full of Minnesota Vikings stuff, and it's not great. It's very sad. But Graham said he had one, but he could not find it, so we did not have one we really want to talk about this week. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to just do a quick market update, and then I would just like to roll into our end of year checklist. So we've got an end of year checklist, as you know, Louann, prepared.
Yes.
That we want to talk about, where there's some tax strategy type stuff that you can do towards the end of the year that I think people should be listening to. So really, as far as a market update goes, it's been it seems like it's up one day, down the next, and almost a trending sideways. We had a little bit of a 5% steam blow off, if you will, that happened a little while back. But here recently, I think all eyes are probably focused on the December the 10th meeting when the Feds get together. Right now, the futures are predicting a rate cut on December the 10th. And so right now it's 89 point. I just literally just pulled it just a second ago, 89.2% chance of a 25 basis point cut coming up. So the reason I bring that up is just a few weeks ago, it was like a less than a 50-50 chance. So if we're listening to shows in the last 3-4 weeks, we were talking about probably no rate cut. And then like a week ago, it was like this massive reversal that happened. And now we're up to like a 90% chance of a rate cut. So it's going to be really interested to pay attention to the languaging that they're using. Remember, we had a month of no data. So the government was shut down for, 35 days or something like that. So no data was there. But right now, hey, rate cuts on the way. And as I always say, this is already priced in. Like the market has already priced this in. So just pay attention to some other things that are going to be coming out around the rate cut time. We've got unemployment that'll come out, and then CPI will also come out at that time. But right now, rate cut looks like it's on the way.
All right. That being said, let's get to it. End of year tax planning checklist. This is going to be good. So I'll kind of hand it over to you and Graham, Cris.
Yeah, so Santa has a checklist, and I think he checks it twice. I think everybody should take their end-of-year tax planning checklist and probably at least check it twice and try to figure out some things that you can do at the tail end of the year just to kind of help out. So we're going to go through, I don't remember how many bullet points we prepared, Graham. Was it like 11 or 12? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we get, I think you're at about 12.
Yeah, so we'll walk through those. And I think first and foremost, I think it's really important for everybody to know exactly where they are in the brackets today. So know like what marginal bracket you're in, understand from a capital gains bracket where you're at. I think that's really, really important to kind of understand where your 2025 income is going to land. The reason this is important is once January 1st rolls around, there's not a lot you can do. Now, I know that you can make HSA contributions, until tax day. You can make IRA contributions up until tax day. But in terms of like putting in your 401k and some other things, you can't do those after 12/31. So it's important to go ahead and start recognizing where you're at. And you may want to do some Roth conversions, because that is one of the things that once January 1st rolls around, the conversion is going to fall in the tax year next year. So you want to be able to have those done. If there's any capital gain stuff, you want to make sure that you do that this year as well, because if not, it's going to fall in next year. And sometimes if you're a high income earner, you may take a look at deferring income to next year. So let's say you're high in a bracket and you have an opportunity to defer some income, then you may want to do that as well. Graham, you got anything just kind of as far as knowing the brackets and things to kind of consider here at the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, big picture, we have a couple things to consider with the brackets, and this is something we've talked to a lot of clients about internally. The brackets obviously got renewed this year, so we have them quote unquote indefinitely until ultimately some congressional body comes in and changes that, and we don't know when that'll be. But there are a few things that are temporary in the new tax code. One of those being that extra age 65 deduction, which I think is probably the biggest one. But there's a few other things as well. I believe that SALT cap for those itemizations is really only fixed for a few years. So there's a couple of those things that you can take advantage of starting this year. They made a lot of it retroactive, even though the law passed. And we kind of talked about the OBBB ad nauseum here now, but it's still good to know that it was all retroactive. So even though it passed halfway through the year, that's all falling back. Technically, all those rules are starting January 1st, 2025. So this is one of those years, and between now and really 2029 is kind of going to be the most advantageous period for a lot of people for taxes. Not saying the brackets aren't going to go up necessarily after that, but some of these other little bonuses that were thrown in there are going to be gone. So, even though as counterintuitive as it might sound to say, our message to a lot of people, my message to a lot of people has been, this is a pretty good time to pay some taxes. So if there's some taxes, as far as not to just write the IRS a check and say, thanks for being you, Merry Christmas, but more like saying, hey, I got some money to convert. I got some capital gains to sell. Anything where you're going to have some extra deductions this year, where you can kind of work your way through where the rules are currently. So it's a good time to pay taxes that you're going to have to pay in the future if you don't pay them now. Don't pay taxes that you're never going to have to pay. But I think it's just a good thing to remember as you're kind of wrapping up the year. Sometimes we see people who, they come in, they bring in the last year's return, and we look at it and say, hey, there were maybe a couple opportunities here that you could have taken advantage of last year, and it might be January 2nd, but we're already kind of too late for some of those. So it's definitely good to kind of look at those cleanup items, see if there's any of those, temporary rules that are going to apply to you that might help you out a little bit. And and have a strategy for end of 2025 going into 2026.
So all of these end of year tax type things, these strategies, you want to coordinate that with the IRMA brackets. You also want to keep in mind the NIT tax, the net investment income tax, which again, over $250,000 adjusted gross income for a married couple. That's an extra 3.8% on interest, dividends, capital gains, things of that nature. And then speaking of capital gains, just understanding, where you're at in those brackets. Most people are going to be either in the 0 or 15 bracket. If you get up really high in income, close to $600,000 in adjusted gross income, then you're going to jump into the 20% bracket. But any tax strategies that you're doing need to coordinate with those three things that we just mentioned. So one of the big things I want to talk about right now is I want to talk about the retirement plan contributions for this year. And then Graham, hopefully you have the notes on 2026. I think we talked about that pre-show.
Yeah, I got it.
Where the levels went to and contribution limits are going to. So let's kind of talk about that. Before we get into next year, let's talk about this year. So with 401k, 403b, TSP, all of those types of accounts require payroll deduct. So I can't tell you how many times I've been asked that, by someone, hey, can I just write a check and put that in my 401k? Well, you can't. You can a solo K, but you can't a normal 401k or a 403b or a TSP. So for 2025, if you can, the more money that if you're trying to lower your tax bracket today, then the more money pre-tax you put in, obviously, gives you the opportunity to do that. So $23,500 is the actual limit for someone under age 50 in a 401k. And if you're above age 50, you've got $7,500 extra dollars that you can put in, known as catch-up. And if you're between 60 and 63, then you can actually do the super catch-up. So it'll be $11,250 and not the $7,500. You can't do both, but the total there would be $11,250, which takes the total that you can put in a 401k between age 60 and 63 to like $34,750. So you have to do that by end of year. Again, if you're looking to lower your tax brackets today, then you would look to do, pre-tax there. And then as far as Roth and the individual traditional IRAs, $7,500 is the limit. If you're 50 or older, then you have an extra $1,000 that you can put in. Now, this is one of those things I talked about a few minutes ago that it doesn't have to be done by the end of the year. You actually have until tax day to get those done for your IRA contributions and then also your HSA contributions. So that's this year. But one thing I think people should take a look at, Graham, is what does next year look like? Because you may need to adjust contributions there.
Yeah, and that we're actually getting a nice little bump in contributions, allowable contributions next year. So the 401k, just the base contribution, is going up by about $1,000. So this year it's $23,500. Next year, we're going up to $24,500. So another $1,000 for that base contribution. So if you're an individual that's, under 50, under 60, under 50, that's going to be your allowable 401k contribution for the pre-tax / Roth side of your 401k. One other thing I'll bring up as kind of a change next year to just keep in mind as we're talking about the 401k. Some plans, not all plans, but some plans will allow for your employer match to go in as Roth. So right now, even if you put, let's say you put 5% in pre-tax, 5%, you put 5% in Roth, you're still going to get matched in pre-tax in 2025. Your employer's not going to match you Roth. Going forward, starting in 2026, plans will have the ability to do that. Now, will they all do that? Probably not initially, but it's worth checking with your plan provider and seeing if that's available to you, especially for people who work for companies that have a really good match. I know we've met some employees from some big companies around here like TVA and Boeing. Y'all have 10+% matches. So in those scenarios, obviously there's going to be withholding on that, and it's not going to go in totally tax deferred like it does now, but it might be advantageous depending on how much money you make. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then the catch-up contribution is increasing also. So that's increasing from $7,500 to $8,000. So if you're between the ages of 50 and 59, your total contribution next year is going up from $31,000 to $32,500. And then that super catch-up is stacking on top of that as well, which I don't think that amount has changed for this year.
No, so it's still the $11,250, right?
So that's going up to, technically, if you're between 60 and 63, you get $35,750 next year. So pretty hefty amount there. And then on the Roth IRA side of things, basically you're getting a $500 bump if you're under 50. If you're under or over, just, you don't get the catch up under 50. So it's going up to $7,500 you can put into IRA or Roth IRA next year. And then the catch up is increasing by like $100, which is kind of interesting.
It is.
So yeah. I've never, usually they raise by just like even $500 amounts. The $100 is a bit.
Yeah. It's normally just $1,000.
Yeah. 1,000 or 500. It's just $100. It seems really small.
When I saw this come out, I had to do like a double check because it's just always been 1,000 extra for catch up. And I saw that it was 1,100 and I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. And after some research, yep, it absolutely is right. So yeah, the catch up being 1,100 is weird.
Yeah. So save your pennies and maybe you can get that extra $100 in your Roth IRA by the end of the year. But that brings it for people under age 50, $7,500 max, people over age 50 up to $8,600 maximum. And then the last one really of note would be the HSA, and that's going up to $8,750, and the catch-up is staying at $1,000, I believe, for that one, over age 55. So you can almost get $10,000 in an HSA next year, if you're over 55, $9,750. So that's a pretty hefty amount. I mean, at that, we're kind of getting to the point where even those $10,000 deductible plans could almost get covered, just by a maxed out HSA. So it's definitely an opportunity because there are a few other rules changing as well. I don't know, Chris, we've talked about before, but if you want to talk about the other catch-up rule that's changing this year.
As far as the income,
is
that the one you're referring to? Yeah, just if you make more than $145,000 in W-2 income, then your catch-up all has to go in as Roth. And that is something we talked about the other week. But again, just a reminder, because for some people who are putting in these big catch-up amounts, $8,000 or $11,250 or $1,100, those amounts are going to be going in as Roth, and that's going to make a taxable impact. So, if you're in the 22 bracket and you're putting in, $8,000 of current pre-tax catch-up, and then next year you're putting it in as Roth because you have to, because you make more than $145,000, 8,000 times 0.22, you're over $1,600 in federal tax hit. And that will surprise a lot of people. But to your point, and somebody brought this up to me, actually. They came in the office and they talked about using an HSA to offset the Roth contribution limit that we're talking about. If you make more than $145,000, they just said, hey, I just set up an HSA and I can put in $10,000, which will offset my $8,000 of contribution that has to go in as Roth. And they'll actually get a little bit of a tax benefit that way. But because $10,000 obviously is greater than the $8,000. So
the only person I guess it hurts is if you were already doing the HSA, already doing the catch up, then, kind of got nothing for you there as far as, tax relief, but it's not like you can't put the money in. It just has to go in Roth. So it's going to impact the high income earner the most. If you're making $146,000 a year, it maybe wasn't a bad idea to be doing some Roth anyways. But for someone making, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year, that's probably going to be the biggest impact. But those limits increasing overall definitely do help out a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to talk about, because we were talking about Roth contributions, is the income limits actually went up a little bit for next year as well. So for next year in 2026, if you're a single individual, if your adjusted gross income is $153,000 or less, then you can make a full Roth IRA contribution. And for a married couple filing jointly, it's $242,000 as far as modified adjusted gross income for Roth IRA contributions. So that's important to know. We see a lot of times people will come in the office and they have the ability to make a Roth IRA contribution, and they don't. And in a lot of cases, I've seen where families are sitting on gobs and gobs of cash in money market savings accounts, CDs, whatever the case may be, and their income is low enough, and they are not making Roth IRA contributions. So that is one thing that we see a lot. The second thing that I see quite often, actually, we have a meeting a little bit later today where we've got to kind of uncover this for a family we're working on, is, again, income is low enough they can make the contribution, but they only did one person. Because I think some people or some families forget, just because like one spouse is working, one spouse is not, you can still make a contribution for the non-working spouse based off the income of the working spouse, and they tend to forget that. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, just little things along the way. And, as far as, so how do we uncover this? Well, number one, we've been doing this a long time, and there are things we know to look for. But I think more importantly, Graham, is our report card that we have put together that follows the process, the RITE process, and it touches on somewhere around 25 areas of retirement planning. And it really enables our advisors to look at someone's situation and really identify where they could and should really do things. And so, in the second meeting, when we set up what we call our strategy session, we go over that report card and we're like, okay, we have opportunities here. It doesn't mean that these red areas on the report card means you're failing at life or anything like that. It means that, hey, there's a conversation that needs to be had around this specific topic. So, I would encourage listeners, if you're listening to the show today, get in, come see us, set up a discovery session. Let's sit down. Let's walk through your specific situation, and let's see if there are areas where, we can add some value or show you what, you should be doing based upon what the laws allow you to do. And I think it's important for every family I think they owe it to themselves to review their tax efficient strategy plan to make sure that they're doing everything they can to be as efficient as possible, because we know with the cost of groceries and inflation, and now there's tariffs has caused some of the prices to be raised as well. We need to be as efficient as we can with our money, and the IRS code, the tax code, allows you to do certain things within the tax code to help you be more efficient. We talk a lot about HSAs, we talk about Roth contributions. We talk about the NIT tax, and are there things we can do to get below that to save ourselves 3.8%? These are all things that we go through, that we walk through with a family. And I would say, Graham, on the report card, because you've run a number of those for families, the tax area is usually where there's the largest opportunity. Would you say?
Yeah, especially if you're still working and kind of approaching retirement. Not that when you are retired, there's still certainly things you can do, but while you're working, a lot of times that's when you're kind of making your highest income and at the same time prepping for an upcoming retirement. So, those are the moments where people tend to have more disposable income, more income coming in general. Maybe they're kind of padding the savings account a little bit more than they need to because they're feeling the ticking of the clock with retirement approaching. So there's definitely a lot of things that show up on that area, just kind of as a way to, like you said, just synthesize that information and just really zero in on those, those things that are high priority to us and should be high priority to the family.
For sure. And you're talking about prepping or nearing retirement and trying to pad those accounts. One thing that I see a lot near the end of retirement, I think it's ingrained in our head that we can't go into retirement with a house payment. I think that's just there's other radio people, we'll just say it like that, that are like, you got to pay your house off. And I don't disagree with that. But there are some people out there today who are just really bent on making sure they pay their house off, and they're plugging every dollar into paying off an end of home loan. And when I say end of home loan, everybody knows that you pay most of your interest through the first part of the loan. Really, the first half of the loan is where you pay your greatest amount of interest. So I've seen families where they're in like the last 5 years of their loan. It's pretty much all principal at that point. And they're maybe they're sitting on a 3.3% interest rate or something like that. And they're just plugging money away, and they're not hitting the retirement accounts that they should. Meanwhile, the house will be paid off like in 5 or 6 years into retirement. But in their minds, they've just had it ingrained for so many years. I cannot have a house payment in retirement. Well, the fact of the matter is you can if you can afford it. There's, what I consider emotional decisions and then data-driven decisions. So chunking money into the last 4 years of a house payment just to get it paid off, in retirement or before retirement, and by doing so, you're missing Roth IRA contributions, or maybe you're missing some 401k or HSA contributions to pay off money that you're paying little to no interest on at the tail end of a loan. To me, mathematically doesn't make sense in a lot of cases. So again, I think it's an emotional, psychological thing that we've heard for so many years, is like we can't go into retirement with any debt, especially a house. My house must be paid for. And that in a lot of cases is absolutely false. You've heard that often as well, Graham, I'm sure.
It always depends on where you're at in life too. If you're somebody who you're taking advantage of your retirement plan at work, you're maxing out your 401k, you're getting your Roth IRAs done, you're getting your HSA done, you're doing all those things, and you got a 2.3% mortgage, and now you want to start paying some more on it, even if you're late in the loan, it's like, okay, sure. You're hitting all your other goals. But I think the big thing for me, and I've said this to a lot of people, ultimately, you're not going to buy groceries with your house in retirement. You're not going to go on vacation with your home equity. Not that home equity is a bad thing. And I want to be really clear. Like, when we're telling people this, we're not telling them, hey, you're not going to do that. And so let us invest the money for you and we'll do way better. We're saying put money in your 401k.
Exactly.
We don't make any money from telling you to do that. I get no benefit today for telling people to do that, but think it's the right thing to do. And then when you get to that point where you have the extra income, sure, pay more on the mortgage, pay it off fast if you want to. But if you go into retirement with more savings and a smaller mortgage that's a low interest rate, I don't think that's a huge deal.
It's not a bad thing. No, it's not. I know we're near the first half of the show. So if you're listening to this on the way to church, you can hop out to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, catch the podcast, the whole version. We're going to get into Roth conversions and several other end of year tax strategy type stuff that we think that listeners should pay attention to here as we wrap up the end of year here in 2025. So again, if you'd like to give us a call to set up your discovery session, you can do so by calling 256-937-2010. Again, the number is 256-937-2010.
If lingering doubts like, have I saved enough? Or will my retirement funds endure? Are on your mind, it's time to consult with Cris Wallace. Text VISIT to 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010 to book your appointment and get the answers you need.
Are you a federal employee feeling pressure from the early retirement offers like VERA, VSIP, or the Deferred Resignation Program? Recent government initiatives have introduced significant changes to federal retirement programs, making employees feel pressured to consider early retirement or face potential layoffs. At WG Financial Group, we help guide federal employees through these uncertain times. Our team understands the complex federal retirement systems and can help you make informed decisions. Call 256-937-2010 to schedule your complimentary discovery session with us today. We'll help you assess your options and create a personalized retirement plan to help you feel more confident. Visit WGFinancialGroup.com or call 256-937-2010 to book your session. Firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Market fluctuations can be unsettling. but a resilient plan can help maintain stability. Discuss how you might fortify your retirement strategy with Cris Wallace. Text VISIT to 256-937-2010 today to begin. Remember, text VISIT to 256-937-2010.
We just want to thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Rite Retirement Show. I'm Louann Fulmar here with Cris Wallace and Graham Bauer of WG Financial Group. I do want to mention that Cris would welcome the opportunity to do a lunch and learn. I want to bring that up. He's been doing them. He did one earlier here recently and in the fall, and he would welcome the opportunity to come to your business for your employees. He does this complimentary, okay, for businesses here in the Huntsville area. He'll help your employees better understand all these retirement things we talk about on our show, and he can help them, on a one-on-one or in-person basis. So just call 256-937-2010 to schedule that complimentary lunch and learn for your employees, 256-937-2010. Okay, guys, so let's get back to it. We're talking about our end-of-year tax planning, going over a checklist for us, and I believe you're ready for Roth conversions. Are you ready to get into that yet?
We are. Roth conversions. So obviously a Roth conversion creates a taxable event. So something else that I've heard a lot actually is, hey, Cris, I want to do that Roth thing. I want to put all my money in that Roth thing. And they got a big 401k, and my dad's one of them. So when I say this, and my dad was one of them that wanted to do the Roth thing, and I'm like, if you convert all of that right now and put it all in the Roth thing, it creates a taxable event. So just know that when you do a Roth conversion, it does create a taxable event. So when we're talking about this on the air today, I want to preface it by first saying that there's a taxable event created. The second thing is they're not for everybody. Like they work for, I would say they work for most of the situations that we look at, but there's some unknowns. We don't know what brackets are going to be in the future. We can make the assumption that the permanency of the brackets today won't remain the way they are forever. Obviously we can't guarantee that, right? But we can make the assumption that eventually there will be another party that gets in office at some point, and they will change the tax brackets, the marginal brackets. But as of today, they are lower, and I think Roth conversions make a lot of sense for people that are younger. So let me just back up to really young. So let's get into our 20s. There's an argument there where I personally think that younger individuals should just consider all Roth regardless at a young age. The reason I say that is you've got a lot more time for that Roth IRA money or that Roth 401k money to compound to offset the long-term growth in the Roth will, in my opinion, offset the long-term tax savings that you're going to get by doing pre-tax today. So I like Roth, especially, for my sons. I had another conversation with them this weekend about like what I thought they should be doing at their age, and they're in their middle 20s at this point. So just kind of keep that in mind. But when you get into pre-retirement and retirement, as far as conversions go, where we see the most impact is for younger individuals. One, we also see a big impact if there is an age gap between the spouses. So let's say the husband is 65 and the wife might be 55. You're going to see a better numbers at that point. Again, all things being equal, tax brackets stay the same. You're going to see a better number there, because what happens is eventually, again, just looking at things from a statistical standpoint, the 65-year-old husband's going to die first. And so what that's going to do is that's going to put the single widow in the single filer tax bracket, which we know that if there's a lot of RMDs that are required, if you're sitting on $2 or $3 million of pre-tax money, Graham has said this before, and I absolutely love the way that he said it. The brackets may change, but the RMD doesn't. So the RMD amount is going to be the same regardless. It's not going to look at you and have pity on the widow or widower. So just kind of some, I guess, little tips that we see there is it tends to work better when you're younger. I think there comes an age, and I don't exactly know what the age is, but the older you get, the less likely I would say it would be advantageous to do a Roth IRA conversion. So I'll make a wild example here, like age 80 and you have $3 million in pre-tax money. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to do Roth conversions at that point. But I had someone at an event one time I was actually talking, and they said, it doesn't make sense at 65. And I was like, I respectfully disagree. And they said, oh, because of IRMA. And I'm thinking, and I didn't, get into the, battle here or whatever, but, you can stay in the 22 and stay under IRMA and be converting at that point. So anyway, I think you really have to look at that. And as Graham and I have noted, right now rates are lower. So I think it makes sense if you have a large IRA to start the conversions. And as I just noted, you do have to be conscious of the IRMA brackets, because if you eclipse certain thresholds in adjusted gross income, your Medicare premium or your Medicare premiums are going to be increased 2 years down the road. Because remember, Medicare looks back 2 years. The other thing, Graham, that you mentioned this earlier, and we talked about it a few seconds ago, was the senior deduction. You have a phase out there. Mm-hmm. So you want to touch on the phase out when you do these conversions.
Yeah. And it's something it's kind of another little hoop that we're I guess we're thankful for it. I'm sure I say I'm not a retiree. The retirees are thankful for it, but it's another little hoop to jump through. So the extra senior deduction, what we're referring to, is between basically for the next 3 years, there's going to be an extra $6,000 per person over age 65 deduction on top of your standard, on top of that normal extra senior deduction over 65 that was already in place. So that's all great, but there is a phase out for that. So if you make $250K modified adjusted gross, you are not going to get any of it. If you make under 150, you'll get all of it, and then it phases out in between there. So if you had 200,000, you get half of it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, kind of like IRMA. When we're talking about it, I would just say it depends how much pre-tax money you have, if you really need to be putting much consideration to this. Because I've talked to some people that they're not converting thousands, they're converting millions. Correct. And when you have those conversations, we can't do that and stay under the first IRMA. We can't do anything meaningful and stay under the first IRMA bracket. Sure, we can convert $40,000. Now we have, $2,960,000 in an IRA instead of $3. Yeah. It didn't really make a big impact. So for some of the people listening out there that have saved really well, have large pre-tax balances, you kind of have to come to the realization at some point that if you want to do anything significant, you just are going to have to rip off that IRMA Band-Aid for a few years, say, I'll pay it for a couple of years and then I'm never going to pay it again. Or I'll pay it up in the third IRMA bracket, and then I'll only have to pay it in the first for the rest of my life. Same thing with the senior deduction. If you're someone who's maybe just looking for smaller amounts to convert, it's something to consider to say, hey, maybe I want to try to stay under this so I can still receive some of the benefit. But if you need to get a lot converted, it's going to be harder for you to stay under these limits and do meaningful amounts.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to think long term. So when we talk about Roth conversions, it's a long-term strategy here. It's a long-term play. And I think when we get in our heads that like this extra single deduction we're talking about here, this extra senior deduction, it's $12,000. So that's great, but it's only around for a few more years. So if you want to fight to stay under $150,000 in adjusted gross income so that you can do a Roth up to that point and you can pick up that extra $12,000, that's great. You can do that for the next 2 or 3 years. But as Graham noted, if you have a large amount of pre-tax money, you're barely going to be putting a dent into the pre-tax money at that point. So you're going to get 3 years down the road, and yeah, you picked up the extra senior deduction for 3 or 4 years, but you didn't convert any of the Roth. You didn't convert hardly any money into Roth. And then what if another party gets in office, 3, 4, 5 years, down the road, or, it could be 8, whatever, and they change the tax brackets. Well, you've missed an opportunity at a pretty low rate to go ahead and convert. So it's not that you want to completely ignore the IRMA brackets or the extra senior deduction. What we're saying here is sometimes you have to weigh the options. Okay, do I want to save here, or do I just want to go ahead and, as Graham put it, and I like the way he said it, was just rip the Band-Aid off, and then in the future you don't have to worry about it at all. Because obviously if if you have all Roth IRA money and maybe just Social Security, you're zero tax bracket the rest of the way through. I mean, you're not going to have any taxes at all. Well, I've got a pension. Okay, cool. You've got a $60,000 pension. You've got some Social Security and all Roth IRA money. Well, congratulations, you're in the 12% tax bracket at that point. So what a great place to be for some people. So you do have to take it kind of case by case. And you also have to think about this too. So not only do we have the threat of, tax brackets rising again, the marginal rates, you also have to think about the IRMA premiums as well. And those have been jumping dramatically over the past several years. So that is when, obviously if your modified adjusted gross income crosses those thresholds, then those Medicare premiums go up. And so we've seen just Medicare B in general is going to go up about $26 in 2026. So we're going to see it go from, $185 to around $207. So maybe that's like $27. Don't do math on the air. But at the end of the day, so there's your Medicare, just your base premium going up. And then you're also going to see those IRMA premiums start to increase as well. So you do have to think about that in conjunction with the marginal rate potentials to go up, because all of that stuff stacks together. So Roth conversions, again, we'll kind of wrap this section up because we could go on and on about it. It is, I'd say, a case-by-case basis. Again, I think it works really, really well when families are younger or if there's an age gap. And I also think it makes a lot of sense if you just have a ton of pre-tax money. I think it makes a lot of sense. So any last words there, Graham, or you think we've covered enough there?
I'll just make one very quick example to just kind of, and I would say this is a real situation we've seen in the last couple of years. So let's not say you have like 20 million pre-tax. $1 million pre-tax, which I think applies to more people than people would think out there with market performance and 401k contributions going up over the years. So if last year you said, hey, I got $1 million, I want to standard IRMA, I want to get these extra deductions, yada, 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 I'm just going to convert like $80,000. After taxes, you probably would have gotten like $65,000 in that account. And let's just say you were invested like a 50-50 portfolio. Your IRA probably grew back to just about the same amount it was before you did that conversion in the last year. You're probably back to about $1 million. And, you got a little bit, maybe you got 75,000 in the Roth IRA now, but you didn't really make a dent in it. So again, I think it's that, I can't think of the exact, I think you've used a term before. It's kind of like a weed that grows back. I think
it's like a haircut.
Yeah, like a haircut. It just, you cut it and it grows right back sometimes, especially in times of good performance. So there's a lot to consider, but I think that's the benefit of, just kind of being able to talk to somebody that does this a lot and is able to kind of lay out some different strategies. I'm all about options. I think it's great to I think people think we get paid for advice, and we do, but I think we also get paid for options. Like, we don't just tell people do this. Usually it's, hey, here's a couple options. This is maybe what I would do if I were you, but ultimately we can go whatever way you're most comfortable with.
Correct. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And you've seen that with market performance, the haircut theory. It's like you do a Roth conversion. It's like, boom, the haircut, the dollars came right back, just like a haircut. Or my eyebrows. As you get older, your eyebrows grow really fast. That's TMI right there. But let's move into capital gains and capital loss harvesting. So this is, I think this is a strategy that is another one that is often overlooked. And there's a couple of theories that I have behind it. So, capital or tax loss harvesting right here, where we're going to take a non-IRA account, so it's a non-qualified account, also known as TOD or Joint with Rights or Survivorship, and we're purposely going to sell a stock at a loss to capture a $3,000 loss there. And the reason that's important is that you can use that capital loss to offset ordinary income. And I think that's another way to lower your income. And if you do that right and you do it long enough, it really turns out to really help someone's tax efficiency. It also really can impact long-term returns as well because of reducing the taxes if it's long-term, if it's done correctly. Now, why is this often overlooked? Well, there are a lot of people out there that fall in love with their stock. So let's say that they buy, stock ABC and they really like it. Maybe mom or dad had it and it got passed down to them and they just, that's sentimental, and there's a loss and there's an opportunity to capture that $3,000 loss. But the psychology behind it is, it's going to come back. I can't sell at a loss. That's a bad thing. And we're like, no, it's a good thing in some cases to sell at a loss to capture capital loss. Now, when you do this, let's say you have a fund and you sell this, you capture a loss, you can't turn around tomorrow and rebuy that fund again. There's something called the wash rules that you have to keep in mind. So there's a 30-day wash rule that has to, it has to be taken into account. But again, just to repeat what I just said, a lot of people see it as a bad thing to sell a stock at a loss, and it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. Graham, anything to add on tax loss harvesting here?
We talk about that $3,000, and that's obviously, nice to have that deduction. But I think where it makes the biggest impact too is if you're someone who's got, some really highly appreciated positions that they need to offset, and you're able to do a little bit more harvesting than that. There's definitely more and more conversations that come up with people in our client base nowadays, especially as we've seen some of these tech stocks just have some crazy run-ups in the last couple of years where, it's kind of the blessing and a curse thing where, it's a blessing to have that much of a capital gain, and it's a curse to have to pay the taxes on it. But hey, I'd rather have the gain and have to pay taxes on it than not have the gain. But like you were talking about earlier, Chris, that most people are in the 15% capital gains bracket. Most of the time, I think if you're in the 20%, good for you. That means you either, make a ton of money or you made a really good investment in something.
Yeah.
So again, it's that blessing and a curse thing. And I think it's good to always kind of to have a strategy, especially for, if you're really concentrated in some position, whether that's, some business that you're trying to sell, or that's a stock that you're trying to sell, or a property or something like that you kind of have a plan for trying to offset some of those gains.
Yeah. And speaking of appreciated assets, it just kind of rolls right into the next one, charitable giving strategies. So if you have those appreciated assets in a non-qualified account, you can gift those to charities. So there's a lot of our clients are charitably inclined, and you can gift appreciated stock and assets. Really, stocks and funds is what we see mostly, where you're giving those to your church or charitable organization. That's one way that you can give efficiently. And all of this has to be done by the end of the year. You can't get to January or February and say, oh, you know what, I was really going to give X amount of dollars to my church. I want to give some of this appreciated stock. That all has to be done by 12/31. So appreciated stock gifting is one way. You can also look at what's called a donor advised fund to really cram in a lot of deductions at the end by the end of the year. And with a donor advised fund, the way it works is you get the deduction in the year of the donation to the donor advised fund, and then you don't get any deductions after that. So, a place where we might see this would be someone that is doing a Roth conversion, and we're kind of mixing some different tax strategies to help lower the tax burden, and they're charitably inclined, and so maybe make a donation to a donor advised fund. You could see it where you have restricted stock units or something, and you're charitably inclined, and maybe you make a donation there, or maybe you're doing net unrealized appreciation rollover, and you lose the step up at death on a net unrealized appreciation rollover, and you don't want to sell that stock, and you want to diversify. Well, you can put that in your donor advised fund and take the tax deduction for this year, and then you can give out of that donor advised fund in the future. Again, you just don't get the tax deduction in subsequent years. Now, why is this important? Because with the OBBB bill that was passed, next year there will be a 0.5% floor to itemized charitable giving in 2026. So you've got a little bit of a hurdle you have to get over. So, we talk about when you're itemizing, there's certain thresholds. With medical, I think it's 7.5%. So with now in 2026, you're going to have the 0.5% floor. So for some people, it might make sense to give more in 2025 because you're going to get the full deduction, or next year you're going to have the 0.5% floor. And then lastly, we talk about this one quite a bit on the show. If you're 70 and a half and you're not itemizing and you don't have appreciated assets to give away, I think it makes a lot of sense to start QCD and qualified charitable distribution at 70 and a half. That way you're not giving money directly from a checking or savings, and you're basically giving away your IRA to your charity. Charities don't pay the tax on it, and the gift to the charitable organization, you don't pay the tax on it. So everybody wins in that scenario. Your giving is satisfied, the recipient doesn't pay the tax, and neither do you. So it's a win-win-win all the way around. So that's another giving strategy. Graham, anything else to add on those that I may have left out that we didn't talk about?
I think that's most of it for 2025. The other thing for 2026 is there will be, with OBBB again, a little charitable giving deduction you can get even if you take the standard. It's not huge, but it's still subject to that floor. Mm-hmm. But, it's $1,000 up to $1,000 for a single individual, $2,000 for a married couple. If you haven't been keeping track of it because you were like, well, I'm not itemizing, so it doesn't matter, keep track of it for 2026. Because again, $2,000, for most people, it's not going to be massive, but it's a couple $100. If you're in the 24% tax bracket, it's a few $100, and that's better than nothing. So
that matters.
It matters. And so just, keep in mind, because I think a lot of people just do a little giving here and there and maybe don't really keep track of it. But if you're doing enough to get that deduction, you might as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll move into another topic that we need to talk about is RMDs. So if you're, due to take an RMD, you want to do that by the end of the year. So just kind of make sure you're all satisfied there. Again, if you're over 70.5 and you're charitably inclined, and probably look at doing some QCDs there. Number 7 on the list is HSAs and FSAs. So I mentioned earlier that you can make an HSA contribution all the way up until tax day, April 15th. So if if you're considering that, you do have a little window of time there. But when it comes to the FSA, this is the one where you have to really use it or lose it. So it has to be spent down by the end of the year. And usually there's a grace period, for some carryover there. But just keep that in mind that the FSA, if you need to go to the doctor, let's go ahead and start using up that FSA. We're obviously big fans of the HSA. I personally own one. We don't get compensated for selling them. We don't sell HSAs. It's not a sellable product. It is a great tax reduction strategy because the money into the HSA goes in tax deferred. It grows tax free, gets pulled out for qualified medical expenses tax free as well. It's a great vehicle in a tax code, and not enough people use it. Again, we've said it a million times. Most people don't use it because it seems like they're afraid of the word high deductible, because you got to have a high deductible health plan. And frankly, some people just like to have what I call like the normal insurance, where you pay a little bit lesser of a premium on a monthly basis. When you go to the doctor, you pay your copay. Your deductible is going to be, lower in most cases. Most people will like that. It feels comfortable. But man, once you switch to an HSA and you start watching your own money start to compound and accumulate, because inside an HSA, it rolls over every year and you can invest it. And when it really starts to grow, the eyes are opened and you're like, man, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? I should have been looking at this a long time ago. So HSAs and FSAs, get those deadlines in your head so you know what you got to do there. One other thing I'd probably look at, number 8 on the list, is evaluate your withholdings and your estimated taxes. So here in the fourth quarter of 2025, you have until January 15th to make an estimated payment. So if you're not going to fall into the zone where you're safe, the safe harbor limit, then your estimated payment by Q4 for this year needs to be in by January 15th of 2026. The other thing is I don't know, Graham, I'd start looking at 2026 altogether. I mean, there's the higher contribution limits we talked about. Even the dollar amounts within the marginal brackets have moved around a little bit. So I would just be taking a look at where you're going to fall and start thinking about this ahead of time. And a lot of the things that we've talked about on the show today, how can I put those in play to really maximize what I'm doing? And I think, this is a great time to do it, because we're in the beginning of December here at the tail end of 2025 to start thinking about 26 and all the different things that you can and probably should do in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff to look at for 2026. And I mean, I think ultimately, we'll probably talk about this more when we get closer to tax filing deadline, but getting a tax refund, a big tax refund especially, it's not a good thing in our opinion. Not a good thing. You gave the IRS an interest-free loan, and hey, if you're missing out, maxing out retirement accounts, that was the money that probably could have gone in there if you were getting a little extra in a refund. So it's good to kind of look at those withholdings and say, have a bit of a forward look and say, where are we going to be? We don't want to really underpay. We don't want to hit ourselves with any penalties or anything like that. But at the same time, if you're getting a $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 refund, you should probably take a look and say, where can I put my money that I'm maybe getting a little bit more interest, and I'm maybe, would back off my withholdings a little bit, invest in some other areas, so you're not getting that big refund back every year.
I tell you what they can do. if you're getting a $10,000 refund back, you need help. Not mentally. You need financial help. Because if you're getting a $10,000 refund back, that just tells me right off the bat, you could have put money in a Roth inside your 401k and still got a small refund back. So there's efficient ways to think about your money. And I know a lot of people are like, I love to get the refund back. No, it's really a bad thing. Like you said, it's a tax-free loan to the IRS. And if you're getting that much money back, you could have been putting that inside the Roth, inside the 401k, and offset that refund a little bit and put your money in a much better position moving forward. Because even if you get the refund back, it's going to go in a savings account or a TOD or a joint brokerage account. It's going to fall under capital gains rules. So there's a lot of things from an efficiency standpoint that I think some people don't really think about. And they hear the radio too. They hear the show and they're like, we're doing all that. We're doing all these things. I'm good. And time again, we have people come in and they say they're doing all the things. We've been listening to your show for 10 years because we're the longest running independent show in Huntsville right now. And we're doing all these things, Chris. And then they come in and they go through the report card that we have. And it's like, oh, wow, no, you're actually not. There's some opportunities where we can fix some things. So we got a few more here I want to touch on as we get near the end of the show. We already talked a little bit about this, but number 9 on the list was just reviewing your IRMA exposure. Income today is going to affect your 2027 Medicare premiums. Number 10 is there still are some energy efficient home credits that are out there. Heat pumps, windows, doors, insulation, solar are all eligible for credits by the end of the year. And you can get up to $3,200 per household in credits. Now, remember, when it comes to a credit, you can't take enough credits to create a refund. A credit can only take you down to zero. So if you've got $3,000 and you've got $3,200 worth of credits, you're going to owe basically zero in tax because you're going to get $3,000 of credit. The $200, you won't be able to utilize that. If you're a small business or self-employed, you need to look, especially if you're self-employed, look at your SEP IRA or what we call a solo 401k. Those are great ways. We're partial to the solo 401k. We don't have time to get into that today. And then also just from a Section 179 deductibility standpoint. So the OBBB passed some laws where you get a higher accelerated deduction. So if you have equipment or things that you need to purchase, you may want to look at that by year end. And here's one thing I'll say as we really start to wrap up here. Don't spend money just to take a deduction. To me, that makes no sense at all. You want to buy things that you really truly need and then appropriately use the tax code. But I wouldn't go buy, if I'm a farmer, I wouldn't buy 3 tractors just to get the deduction. Because I get the deduction, I'm going to buy 3 tractors. No, do you need 3 tractors? No, I only need 1. Well, maybe buy 1 and take the deduction and invest your money elsewhere. And then lastly on the list, and then we really will wrap this up, is if you're going to gift any money underneath the gift exclusion, $19,000 per person, you want to do that by the end of the year as well. So Louann, that was a lot.
Good stuff, though, man.
But it was good. So hopefully people will listen to this and maybe listen to it a couple of times. There's a lot of little things that you can do. And if they don't understand how to do some of these things, again, we're not CPAs. I can't give you tax advice, but we can talk about our tax strategy options that you have available. And then you can take some of that information and get it verified with your CPA or your tax accountant. So if you'd like to set up a discovery session with our team, all you have to do is call 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010. Hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week, and remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
Please remember, converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. An increase in taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.
Graham Bauer holds the enrolled agent designation, but is not currently offering tax preparation services. Neither the firm nor its agents may give tax advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any purchasing decisions.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisory requirements. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. WG Financial is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial. This radio show is a paid placement.